In the small town of Maplewood, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, life moved at a slow, predictable pace. The townsfolk knew each other by name, and everyone had a story to tell. But no story was quite as unusual or as heartwarming as that of Rusty, the scrappy terrier mix who became an unlikely hero. Rusty belonged to an elderly man named Mr. Thompson, who lived in a modest cottage on the outskirts of town. Thompson was a retired schoolteacher, a quiet man who spent his days tending to his garden and reading by the fireplace. His cottage was a cozy haven, filled with the scent of fresh herbs and the sound of crackling logs. Rusty was his constant companion, a loyal friend who brought joy and laughter into his life. Rusty was a small dog with a big personality. His scruffy coat was a patchwork of brown, black, and white, and his tail wagged with an energy that never seemed to fade. He had a knack for getting into trouble, whether it was digging up Mrs. Jenkins' prize-winning roses or chasing the mailman down the street. But despite his mischievous streak, Rusty had a heart of gold. He was fiercely loyal to Mr. Thompson and had a way of making everyone he met feel special. One sunny afternoon, while Mr. Thompson was napping in his rocking chair, Rusty slipped out of the yard and trotted into town. He had a curious nature and loved exploring new places. The town square was bustling with activity. Children playing, vendors selling fresh produce, and neighbors chatting on benches. Rusty sniffed around the bakery, where the kind owner, Mrs. Jenkins, often gave him scraps. She was a plump, cheerful woman with flour dusted on her apron and a soft spot for animals. "Well, hello there, Rusty," Mrs. Jenkins said, bending down to scratch behind his ears. "What brings you to town today?" Rusty wagged his tail and looked up at her with his big brown eyes. Mrs. Jenkins chuckled and handed him a piece of leftover bread. "You're a charmer, you know that?" she said. But today Rusty wasn't just there for the food. The scent of something even more enticing caught his attention. A mix of leather, coffee, and something metallic. It led him to the Maplewood Police Station, a small, unassuming building with a faded sign that read Maplewood Police Department. The police station was a quiet place most days, with only a handful of officers on duty. Officer Dan, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a kind smile, was sitting at his desk, filling out paperwork. He was a familiar face in town, known for his patience and dedication to keeping Maplewood safe. When Rusty pushed open the door with his nose and trotted inside, Officer Dan looked up and grinned. "Well, if it isn't Rusty," he said. "What are you doing here, little guy?" Rusty wagged his tail and sniffed around the room, his nose twitching as he explored. The other officers chuckled, used to seeing the little dog around town. But Rusty wasn't there for attention this time. He had spotted something shiny on Officer Dan's desk, a set of keys. Before anyone could stop him, Rusty grabbed the keys in his mouth and darted down the hallway. The officers laughed and chased after him, but Rusty was surprisingly fast. He ran past the holding cells, where a few inmates were lounging, and slipped through an open door into the jail's small courtyard. "Rusty, come back here," Officer Dan called, but the little dog was having too much fun. He pranced around the courtyard, the keys jingling in his mouth, as the inmates watched in amusement. One of the inmates, a young man named Jake, leaned against the bars of his cell and laughed. "That dog's got more spirit than all of us combined," he said. Finally, Officer Dan managed to corner Rusty and retrieve the keys. "You're a troublemaker, you know that?" he said, scratching Rusty behind the ears. But instead of scolding him, Officer Dan had an idea. The next day, Officer Dan approached Mr. Thompson with a proposal. "Rusty's got a lot of energy," he said. "How about we put him to work at the station? He could be our unofficial therapy dog." Mr. Thompson, who had been worried about Rusty's wandering, agreed. And so, Rusty became a regular at the Maplewood Police Station. He spent his days greeting visitors, comforting nervous children, and even sitting with inmates in the holding cells. His presence brought a sense of calm and joy to everyone he met. One inmate, Jake, was particularly drawn to Rusty. Jake had been in and out of trouble for years, but Rusty's unconditional love made him feel seen in a way he hadn't in a long time. He started opening up to the officers, sharing his struggles and dreams. With Rusty by his side, Jake began to turn his life around. One stormy night, the station received a call about a missing child. A little girl named Lily had wandered into the woods, and a search party was quickly organized. Rusty, sensing the urgency, insisted on joining. As the search dragged on, Rusty's sharp nose picked up a faint scent. He barked and tugged at Officer Dan's pant leg, leading the team deeper into the woods. Finally, they found Lily, cold and scared but unharmed, huddled under a tree. "Good boy, Rusty," Officer Dan said, patting the dog on the head. Lily wrapped her arms around Rusty, her tears soaking his scruffy fur. Rusty's heroism made him a local legend. The town celebrated him with a special ceremony, and he was awarded a shiny medal that he wore proudly on his collar. But Rusty's greatest reward was the love and gratitude of the people he had touched. Years later, when Rusty passed away, the entire town mourned. The police station erected a small plaque in his honor, and his story was passed down through generations. And so, the mischievous little dog who once went to jail became a symbol of hope, redemption, and the power of unconditional love. One day, a young girl named Emma came into the police station with her mother. She was shy and hesitant, clutching a stuffed animal to her chest. Officer Dan knelt down to greet her. "Hi there, Emma. I'm Officer Dan. What brings you here today?" Emma didn't respond, but her mother explained that she had been struggling with anxiety and had trouble opening up to people. Officer Dan smiled and gestured to the plaque on the wall. "Let me tell you about a very special friend of mine," he said. As Officer Dan shared stories of Rusty's kindness and bravery, Emma's eyes lit up. By the end of the visit, Emma was smiling and even gave Officer Dan a hug. As they left, Officer Dan felt a sense of fulfillment. Rusty's legacy was alive and well, touching lives in ways he could never have imagined. Rusty's influence extended far beyond the police station. His story inspired the town to start a community program called Rusty's Paws, which provided therapy dogs to schools, hospitals, and nursing homes. The program brought comfort and joy to countless people, just as Rusty had done. One of the program's first participants was a young boy named Max, who had been struggling with the loss of his father. Max was withdrawn and rarely spoke, but when he met a therapy dog named Bella, something changed. Bella's gentle presence and unconditional love helped Max open up and begin to heal. "She reminds me of Rusty," Max said one day, as he stroked Bella's soft fur. Officer Dan, who had become a mentor to Max, smiled. "Rusty would be proud," he said. Years passed, but Rusty's memory lived on. The Maplewood Police Station became a place of hope and healing, thanks to the little dog who had once caused so much mischief. His story was told and retold, inspiring new generations to believe in the power of kindness and second chances. And every evening, as Officer Dan closed up the station, he would look at the plaque on the wall and smile. Rusty had been more than a dog. He had been a friend, a hero, and a reminder that even the smallest among us can make a big difference.